I've always had some sort of like special fondness for this game, mainly because I really like the art style for it, and I like how the game is set up and you move through the different levels and stuff. I feel like it really shows off like the cool art style a lot. I think that was really like the main purpose for me buying the game, to be honest. But the big thing with this game is that it's got so much that you have to worry about, and it even tells you when you boot the game up that this game is hard and it's going to test your like willpower and skill to try to get through it, because it's really in depth with a lot of the like skills and upgrades and stuff that you can buy, and there's equipable items and all this stuff that you have to worry about while you're inside of a dungeon. And it really like beats you down while you're trying to play through the game, and like you're gonna lose characters, you're gonna have to abandon quests and all this stuff, because like it just if you don't, you're gonna kill your people off like I did at the end of this little fucking video. So yeah. So when you first get into the game and you make your way past the little tutorial area or whatever, it kind of shows you this it's called the Hamlet, but it's like a little like rundown town that you kind of use to set up as like a base where you can upgrade your people's armor or your weapons, or you can upgrade their skills, or you can recruit new people to your like roster, and like you can check on like your quests, and there's these little areas that you can put your characters into to reduce their stress, which is a huge part of the game, because while you're making your way through these dungeons and stuff, different stuff will occur, or like when enemies will attack you, or like some of their attacks actually build stress. Your characters become, kind of demoralized, and they really want to, push on, but once the stress meter gets all the way full, they have a 50-50 chance of getting a really good trait and powering through the stress, or they have a like mental breakdown pretty much, and they get a bad trait, which is going to like burden the character even more. And like it is a real pain to run through a dungeon and then have your guys super stressed out and not listen to your fucking commands and stuff like that, because they will just do whatever they think is right, and it sometimes will get them killed, let me tell you. The light meter at the top of the screen is sort of like this game's version of a risk and reward sort of system, whereas if you have a lot of light and you use torches to make it bright, it makes it a little bit safer for your characters to maneuver around, because you can, when you search stuff, you have a chance to like scout out the upcoming rooms and stuff like that and see whether or not there's traps, or if there's going to be a battle in the room, or there's people hiding in the hallways or something like that. But if you don't have enough light, it's going to increase your chance of like the loot that you get, so you get better rewards, but you also have a chance to get more stressed, and you can get like negative effects on your characters just because it's dark, which kind of brings that whole risk situation a whole lot higher. So I mean, it's really like up to you whether or not you want to try to get these rewards, but I'd try to play it as safe as possible in this game, because there is so much that can happen in just one turn, like that will completely destroy your characters. So I don't know, if you got a good like party going and you know what you're doing, I guess you go for it, but I cannot. If I'm not mistaken, the overall goal of the game is to try to take back the manor at the top of the cliff side. The guy that narrates the whole game, which is really cool by the way, he's got a really like deep voice, and his narration is like, it fits the game really perfectly as far as like the storytelling aspect, and he'll just like comment on certain stuff that happens while you're in dungeons. But he, I guess, is the owner of the mansion or whatever, and he opens a portal and it lets all the evil out and it destroys his mansion pretty much. And so he wants you and your like crew to kind of like make your way through and take down the bosses of each of the areas and take back the mansion. And so there's all kinds of these different areas that you can go through, and once you've ran through the areas a couple of times and done, different dungeons in those areas, you'll eventually come across a boss, and if you can beat the boss, then you can pretty much complete the area. I think you can still do dungeons and stuff like that in those areas to get more loot and stuff, but I think your main goal is to just like kill one of the bosses in each of the areas, if I'm not mistaken, or maybe there's multiple bosses. When I was going through the area that I was in for this video, I was fighting I think he was a lesser necromancer, so I can only imagine that there was a higher tier necromancer that I could have fought maybe. So I'm not completely sure on that, but a rough outline. As you're making your way through all these dungeons and stuff like that, certain dungeons have different lengths, and if it's a smaller length dungeon, normally you can go through it pretty easily and just kill a couple of monsters here and there and just search the area for, you know, rewards and valuables and stuff like that to sell to, like, you know, get more upgrades and stuff like that in the future. But then you get to the parts where there's longer ones where there's a lot more rooms, and they give you a campfire, which lets you kind of rest in the middle of it, which you get to choose when you use it. So I mean, it's kind of vital to, you know, try to use it and get your characters, you know, boosted and let them heal each other and stuff like that at these campfires when they get low and stuff like that, because if you don't like take care of your characters through these long expeditions, like there's just so much happening that's going on and all this that like you really will lose people like at the drop of a hat. Like it gets really hard really fast, and like there's status effects that they can put on your characters and stuff where they'll bleed over time, or they'll get blight, which is kind of like a poisoning effect, and just there's just a lot to it, and it is real dangerous. I really like a lot of the mechanics to this game. Like, they feel unique and kind of give the game a sense of purpose, and like they make it feel more fleshed out. But a lot of this stuff is like RNG based, and I really hate that on certain aspects. Like when I was going through the very last area trying to make my way to the boss, the little necromancer guy, my guys were like getting super stressed out, which is pretty normal towards the end of a dungeon, because you've done so much stuff, and there's a lot of negative things that happen to you, and different different battles throughout the dungeon will, you know, increase your stress. So they get really like upset, and eventually they just get to the point to where like certain actions they won't want to do it if like the RNG rolls that way. So there was parts where my characters would move out of the formation, and like when in the formation that you have your characters in depends on what certain skills your different characters can use. Like there's a guy that uses a gun, and there's a shot that you can do which hits 3 of the enemies, but to use that specific skill he has to be on like one of the back 2 positions of the party. There's a whole lot to that itself, but like my characters were just so stressed out that instead of attacking, they would waste their turn by moving like back and like forth, moving themselves in the party, which was screwing up the formation and making my characters not be able to use certain skills. And then at one point, my character, 2 of my characters at the very end of the like dungeon that I was doing had a heart attack, and that completely killed, or like it brought them all the way down to 0 HP. And when you hit 0 HP, it puts you on it gives you like a status effect called Death's Door, where like it's basically like a roll every time you get hit at that point on whether or not you're going to completely die or not. And just so my first character had a heart attack and then got hit and died, which left me with 3 characters. And then I finally made it to the boss, and I was going to try to just power through it because I have like one really good character, and he was like above like half HP, and he had a heart attack, and then they killed him off, which left me with like 2 of my lesser people who are more or less kind of like healers or support characters, which at that point they just got obliterated by the boss and the units that he was summoning. So it just it all took a turn for the worst, and it was just a big hassle. But I don't know.
The end approaches.
He just had a heart attack. What the fuck is that?
Unforgiving.
Oh my god. Alright.
More dust.
You're fucking kidding me.
More to
Altogether, I would say this game is really cool, especially if you're looking for a challenge. Like, I mean, this is one of the most challenging games that I've ever played. There's no difficulty slider or anything like that, so it's just, play and hope for the best. And there's even DLCs that add newer and harder dungeons with even more mechanics to the game that you have to worry about if you're really into it. So, I mean, I would recommend it. It's a really fun game, and it's not super expensive. I'm sure you can find it on sale for a pretty decent price. So, I mean, pick it up if you're interested at all in a challenge. But other than that, I mean, I would give this game a 3, a solid 3 at that. I mean, it's not bad in a lot of ways, but I really hate the RNG sort of manipulation factor, and there's just a whole lot to the game that if you're not paying attention to, or just you're confused at all about, like, you can get completely ran over by the rest of the game because there's just so much going on. But I mean, that's just the nature of it. Like, you really have to, like, pay attention and, like, know what you're doing to really get good at the game, which isn't a bad thing. Like, you gotta really be into it. Other than that, though, thank you guys for watching. Should be some links on the screen as always. You guys can click on one of those videos to watch some of my previous stuff, or there's a link in the middle if you want to see some of my newer stuff, so you can subscribe. Other than that, I will see you guys later in the next episode.